Hey, Kurt.
Hey, David. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our April the 13th.
Yeah.
Am I in? I'm in.
You're
I'm
in.
good. I'm good. I look good. Welcome to our April 13th ArtStreamLIve. Here we are.
Yep.
And 2 more days to have a wonderful moment we all live for and love.
Tax day.
Our tax day, April the 15th. But, you know,
It's taxing.
it is taxing. It's very taxing.
Very taxing.
Right. And hey, you know what's fun about all this? You know, is how far back art goes about taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So why not share that tonight?
Must be a historical issue.
I believe
because it goes
is.
back to the beginning of time.
It does go far back into time. So tonight, yes, very taxing artwork.
Mm-hmm.
How about taxation with visualization instead of
Very
with
good.
representation? But there's Mr. Taxman right there, poor elderly guy trying to save his piggy bank. You
That's
know,
right.
But hey,
Yeah.
we all know, but it's coming. We got to deal with it. But
Taxing his Social Security.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
So why not talk about it on ArtStreamLIve?
Yeah.
And, you know, here we go. Well, look, and here's what's fun, you know. If you look at American history, it does go way back, the idea of our history and taxation.
Right.
And at one time, it was considered patriotic. If you fought taxation, you were against it. You didn't want it. As little as possible.
It still sounds patriotic to
That's
me.
me too. But now the idea is, like Uncle Sam up there, I want you to pay your taxes.
Right.
Now it's considered patriotic if you pay your taxes.
Yeah.
So I thought, isn't that interesting? But you know, then we've got a Boston Stamp Act riot, and the whole idea was no taxation without representation. So we fought a part of a war.
Yeah.
And let's get into a little bit. It goes way back. It goes back before
Way
even
back.
the Revolution. And we're looking at here at Boston, Massachusetts, when it was a colony. The governor of the state, Edmund Andros, he decided he was going to impose a tax. The only problem is he didn't consult with the state assembly.
Yeah.
Well, he went ahead and did it. Well, they were going to have a meeting about it, and a gentleman named John Wise at the meeting, they were going to pick the people to impose it. Well, he said no. He said it was illegitimate, then we're going to do it. At the meeting to pick the people to take care of the tax,
Right.
he decided no. He announced we're not going to do it. Well, the mayor didn't like that. The governor didn't like it, so he arrested the people. Several people from the town meeting got put in jail. They went to jail in another town. They had a judge that handpicked the prosecution, called them criminals from the beginning, convicted them. But what's fun, he got the last laugh because there was a revolution over in England, and they felt like the thumb of the King James was on him.
Right.
But they got the last laugh, and Mr. Andros and the Judge Dudley, they went to jail. They got them in prison and over through the tax. So I thought, yay!
Yeah.
And of course, the famous Boston Tea Party back there.
Right.
We all know about that one. So
Yep.
you go back in American history, and here's some more images. You see the first robin, and that's how we all feel many a day. Like, you know, what do you mean? I have freedom? Oh, if I don't pay, I get penalized to go to jail? Ooh, that's freedom?
About 3 o'clock in the afternoon on April 15th every year.
Yep. And then that's an income tax cartoon from 1895, and Uncle Sam saying, I'm sorry for my unfortunate friends. I know the income tax is inquisitional and oppressive, but I've got to meet the $156 million in pension appropriation somehow. Well, gee, that'd be a spit in the bucket today.
Yeah, it would.
That'd be nothing. But even that far back, you know, tax the rich. There it is. So we've got it. And it goes, you know, not only in America, Britain, England, they have a rich history of going back. And I thought this was neat. They have a character called John Bull. And this is a cartoon. Well, he's their version of Uncle Sam. And he was often portrayed as a farmer. That's how they portrayed him. So you can see him on his back is the taxes. And
Yep.
so even back then it goes. And then you've got a cartoon on the right there about the Inquisition in England. And the Inquisitioner, Lord John, he's saying, oh, they've got plenty of money. Away with him. Put the screws on for another year. So even then, back then, this idea of taxing the rich, it's nothing new.
No.
In art, you go back in art, you find example after example. So, you know, that made me start thinking, okay, oh, we're in the money.
In
I like
the money.
that. We're
Finally.
in the money. But
Finally.
it started me thinking about the idea, you know, how far back in time in human history do you have taxes, especially in art and taxes? How far back does art about taxes actually go? What do you think?
I would say way back.
Way back.
As soon as one person had more money than another person.
Yeah, I just like that up there. I like being on all that money. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, I think we need those. Should be $100 bills.
That'd probably be better. But you know, that's probably close.
You take what you can get.
Yeah, but you know, at ArtStreamLIVE we do ask big questions. Yeah. Well, long ago, looky here.
Look at that.
Egyptian peasants seized for non-payment of their taxes during the Pyramid Age.
BC.
Back then, you didn't pay. You got to be a slave.
Yeah.
You're going to work it off one way or the other. The tax man will get his money, like the poorhouse.
Yep.
That was their version of it. So it goes that far back. So that's amazing. And I thought, whoa. And that's actually a drawing from a real, you know, hieroglyphic of history. So I like our Egyptian border too. But, you know, I thought, okay, so here we go. Now we're going to go back. We're going to continue our most excellent adventure into the visual history of art and taxes, with a salute to Ted and Bill. No way, dude.
No way, dude.
No way. But there it is. So we're going to look at it and go further back. Let's see what happens. If we look at art and taxes. Okay, well, look at here. Let's start back here at the census of Bethlehem. You know, God used this to get Mary and Joseph where they needed to be.
Yep.
And the decree went out that they had to be taxed and have a census. And you see the closest there, the people are actually there paying their taxes. Well, this is by Peter Bruegel the Elder and Peter Bruegel the Younger. And you can see the date on there. It's an oil on panel. So it goes way back. So I thought that was
1568,
so I thought that's a pretty neat example. So, you know. And then, here's another moment I thought would be fun to share with art and taxes. This is called The Tribute Money by Peter Paul Rubens. And it took him a couple of years to pay it, 1612 to 1614. But it's a biblical account about Christ paying the tribute money. When the apostles came into town, the Pharisees came up and said, "Hey, doesn't your master pay the tribute tax?" Well, of course he did. So what did he do? He sent Peter to go fishing. Peter hooked a fish and pulled the coin out of its mouth, and that's how they paid their taxes. Boy, that's pretty cool.
I'd like to do that.
I'd like to do that. Go fishing and pay my taxes.
Where's the bait?
And I thought, you know, in a way, why not show Judas betraying, you know, Jesus? He got payment for his betrayal. And 30 pieces of silver. It's a famous moment. I don't know if it's really a tax. But, you know, it was he received money for it. And they were quite willing to pay it. So I thought that'd be fun examples to share. Now, hey, we kept our PG rating. But how about this for a famous tax moment? Lady Godiva.
1897.
Yeah, a couple of pennies. Well, this actually goes back. The story of her goes way back.
Yeah.
So, like, if I remember right, the 14th century. But the whole idea was she was married to a man who was very oppressive to people. He taxed him. He taxed him hard, and it was hard on the people. She cared about the people. And she would often come to her husband and say, "Look, can you do something? Can we relieve the burden on the people?" He told her if she was willing to ride naked through town, he'd do it. He'd relieve the tax burden. So she made a decree telling everybody to be inside their buildings at a certain time of the day. And the story is she rode through town, only covered by her beautiful long hair on horseback. Now, what's fun about the story is the other idea of a peeping Tom. The idea of peeping Tom got started because the town tailor, according to legend, he peeked out the window to watch it go by. His name happened to be Tom, so they called him Peeping Tom. So these are some famous paintings about that famous ride.
Now you know.
That's tax related. So like I said, it goes back in time. All right?
Yep.
Now we got to this fine fellow, Wat Tyler's Rebellion in 1381. And this happened in England. It was a peasants' revolt. And he marched with a group of rebels to Canterbury, and I believe they did behead a bishop in the process. And they wanted to oppose a poll tax and demand economic and social reforms. And at first the rebellion was successful, but unfortunately he was killed later by some officials loyal to King Richard II in Smithfield, London. But you stop and think, people would stand up against taxation.
Yeah.
If they thought it was injustice, they didn't just stand there and take it. I'm not advocating rebellion. And I think peaceful rebellion is okay, but they didn't just stand there and take it. And here's an example way back when, with a piece of art and the artist's name down there.
Yeah.
John Prosart, who painted it. And so I thought that was neat. And we get into the medieval ages, okay. What goes together better than peasants, and taxes. Think about serfdom, you know, getting to be work for the master of the land and give them a cut of whatever you could grow. Well, here they are.
One thing I have noticed, the theme here,
yes,
is that the tax collecting people in all of this artwork are far better dressed than the tax paying people. That's
one reason they were so despised. And when we get to another one, I'll share a moment about that. But you're right. You know, here they are paying their taxes in money and livestock, a nice woodcut from the 15th century. Then we got the payment to the Lord from an illumination on parchment, 1490. Now the one on the top right, that's a contemporary painting, but I just love the feeling of it. You captured that medieval peasant gathering to pay their taxes. And like you said, the guy gathering the taxes always sitting up in a nice chair up higher. Okay, so who's more loved than money changers and tax collectors, right?
Right.
And you find out in art, that subject's been covered a lot. And here's an example of a guy named Quentin Masses. And he did a lot of paintings like this, 1514. Oh, it looks kind of nice. At least he's got a nice picture of the guy, the money changer, and his wife. But I love the one on the right. Look at the look on that guy's face. Don't you love that? I love that. The tax collector, you know, for 1520, well on panel. Does that guy look like he'd pick your pocket?
He looks like he'd take the whole pocket.
Yeah, they got their nice little stack of coins there and everything. You've got his hand kind of point toward the money. So I thought, these are great examples. So I wanted to bring these up tonight. Okay. Now, talking about tax collectors being beloved people. Well, here's one about Matthew getting called by Jesus, who was a tax collector. People despise the tax collectors. And they did very well because they'd get a cut. From whatever they could collect, they'd get a cut of the money. So you're right. They often lived very, very well.
Yeah.
So there's an early example from 1536. And then we have some peasants and the tax collector. We'll see by Jan Masses. And I love the expressions on the people's faces. You know, so it goes so far back in time. Everybody loves tax collectors.
Right.
All right, another good example of a tax collector and his wife. And let's see if I can say this right. Martinez von Weimer Swallow?
Marinus van...
Yeah, Marinus van...
Reimerswale.
That sounds good. I like that. And even back in the Netherlands, we got a nice woodcut from 1596. So once again, you know, the tax collectors, look at the nice outfits they have. They got the nice office environment.
Yeah.
They got it together, man. They're getting it. So, like I said, this just keeps going back in time. Okay, the payment of taxes by George Delatour from, you know, from 1618 to 1620 and well on canvas. And once again, you know, but I was amazed how this theme just runs through art. It's like you said, it's a universal thing. Okay, now here we go. Here's Peter Bruegel the Younger, and it's called Paying the Tax.
A lot going on there.
A lot going on. It's almost a cartoon feel. I kind of like that piece. But, you know, like I said, it's an amazing theme that runs through the history of art. And what better time than the month of April to share it?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. And
I mean, I've finished my taxes. You're in the throes of it.
I'm actually, I'm a little irritated at the moment because I've been working on mine today. I put it off way too long. I should have done it sooner, but I didn't. Oh well.
It's something you just love to do, so.
Oh yeah.
But save it to last, so you save it.
Right. It doesn't decrease what I owe or not. But that's okay. Look here, Rembrandt. The money changer, all right? Even Rembrandt covered it, okay? The tax collector, over here on the right, by Jacob von Turenvelt, I'll call it that.
Sounds good enough to me.
Yeah, and, you know, so this is quite an interesting theme running through the history of art. But, you know, here's where it gets fun. We had an American Revolution based on taxes. No taxation without representation. Here's the Declaration of Independence by John Trumbull. You know, we fought a war over it. And I thought that was a neat painting to share about it. And don't we look patriotic?
Yeah. I'm wearing blue. You should have wore
well,
red.
You're right. I guess orange doesn't count.
Yeah.
Well.
Close.
But
no cigar.
But I thought, well, we'd share that painting. But here's an interesting note I thought coming up on the next slide with the American Revolution. This is a gentleman named Paul Cuff. And he was an African American. And he protested against taxation without representation. He lived in Massachusetts. These men fought in the war. These were free men. And they felt like since they had fought and they had fought for this country, they had a right to have representation too.
Right.
Well, I'll give them credit. Back then in the state of Massachusetts, they granted them the right to be property owners and the right to vote. So he actually stood up for his rights as an American, and they changed it for him. Didn't happen all over the country, but there were places where it planted the seed so it could happen for all, which I thought was an interesting note. Now, here's where it gets fun. The Great Depression in the United States.
Yeah.
It became an unprecedented tax burden to the American people. And at the time, it got so bad that the taxation nearly doubled. It went from 11.6% in 1929 to 21.1% in 1932. And most of
the less people made, less taxes they paid.
Yeah.
So they raised taxes to make more taxes.
And they weren't. Yeah.
So people had less money because there was more taxes.
Yeah, and they
so
could.
It was a vicious circle.
If they were fortunate enough to even get a job, like see the photograph.
Yeah.
They told men would travel the country trying to find work. They basically put up billboards. Don't stop here. We got nothing for you. And so it made a burden. A lot of it was on the local level. So the people formed tax leagues to fight back against it. And it actually was somewhat helpful, but what really changed it, the government got into the act. And here's a little nice flyer down on the bottom right about paying your taxes. They tried to have a campaign to show people be patriotic. It's good to pay your taxes. Look at all the great services we're giving you.
Right.
So that kind of did change the attitude a little bit. It was more effective, and the tax leagues ended up dissolving. But this idea of like, people revolting against taxes and forming political parties or organizations, like we've had recently in our own history, it goes back to that, farther back than people realize.
Yeah.
In fact, do a search and you'll find out that tax revolts run through human history. But yeah, the government ended up being very effective with their campaign, and when they weren't effective, they would go door to door and, let's say, nicely coerce people to pay their fair share.
Right. Fair. I love that. Fair. Fair share.
It goes back to the Great Depression. Now, I thought this was cool.
This is great.
Yeah, I like this. Artists in Mexico can pay their taxes with their artwork. What happened? The artists, most of the time, artists don't have a lot of money.
No.
Well, they couldn't pay their taxes, so when you can't pay them, you tend to not file. You tend to try to hide what you make. You try to do tax evasion. So the people in Mexico realized, well, maybe we need to change it. And they made this program to help stop the artists from wanting to not pay their taxes. And they came up with the idea. And here's a great example. Diego Rivera, that painting behind him on the left, if you notice the picture there, it's in the photograph. That's one of the first pieces they received back in 1957 when they started the program.
Yeah.
So they actually got a piece of art, and now the artists in Mexico can pay their taxes.
I think it's a great idea.
And what's funny about it is they don't give them the worst work. Because a lot of the paintings go in public buildings and public areas.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So they actually try to give them a good piece of art because it gets out into the community.
Right.
I'd love to see it.
Goes in public buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to see America do that. Now, I read one article.
Bradley Byrne, are you listening?
Yeah, I don't know if it's fully true, but I read somewhere that said in Britain, people can pay their taxes with art, but they don't have to be an artist.
Don't have to be the artist, yeah.
But in Mexico, you are the artist. So I thought, that's pretty cool. I did not know they could do that. So I wouldn't mind doing that.
I would participate.
Yeah. So how about that?
Yep. And as always,
our fair use disclaimer. And, like I said, once again, Bill and Ted, I think they were, well, first thing you notice, the lady collapsed over her tax forms. That's about how I felt.
Yeah.
And you might notice that background image of the money going down the drain.
Right.
No, you take from that whatever you think.
It's in symbolism. You have to interpret it.
But it's like
personally.
Bill and Ted said, I think they thought the webcast was like, most excellent, dude.
Most excellent.
Most excellent. So,
yep.
And so that's a neat theme that runs through the history of art a lot more than you would ever think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, man, what is it? Today's the 13th.
13th. 2 more days.
Monday's the big day for all of us to pay our
Midnight Monday.
Share, our patriotic duty. And so what could be better than to share art and taxes running through time? So, and if you're having trouble with it, you can always follow the extension. You need it.
Yep.
And there's something else good coming up in April.
Yeah.
Much better.
Yeah.
I want to wish everyone happy Easter. Remember Easter and what it's all about.
Right.
And so I wanted to close the program with that, and I didn't know if you had something you wanted to come back and share with the folks.
Yeah, I don't have anything this month.
But
yeah,
art and text, who would have ever thought?
Next month we'll have another funky finds.
Oh, that'd be, I always look forward to funky find.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's just a quick little rundown through the history of art and how it relates to taxation. Like I said, visualization with taxation.
Right.
So, and if you ever just have nothing to do,
taxes visualized.
Go to Google, look up tax revolts, and you will see a list, pages and pages, all around the world, from way back when to just yesterday.
For the last 5,000 or 6,000 years.
Like the Tea Party.
Yeah.
Kind of the idea with them and taxes and everything. So it goes, it's part of human nature. And if you're a tax guy, nothing personal.
Yeah.
You're doing your job. So
we don't like your job, but you're doing your job.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for watching tonight. We hope you've enjoyed the webcast.
Yep.
And like we said, we don't know what we'll do next month. We never know, but we'll see.
We'll come up with something.
We'll come up with something.
Yep.
So thank you again for watching, and everybody have a good evening.
See ya. Okay.
Look at that. Cannot publish Facebook again. I did a test not more than 45 minutes ago. Everything was perfect. Everything was working. I didn't touch anything. I hit saved and I went downstairs and got a cup of coffee.
Yeah, that was it right
And
there.
I come back up. It's you. That's what it is.
No,
It's you.